Leviticus 2. The Lord continued giving instructions to Moses for the people to follow when they give grain offerings. The Lord said that when the people present a grain offering to him, it must be made of fine flour, and olive oil and frankincense must be added in it before bringing it to Aaron's sons. The priest will then scoop a handful of the mixture and burn this portion on the altar. This portion will be a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. The rest of the offering will be given to Aaron and his sons, and this part of the offering will be considered a most holy part of the special gifts presented to the Lord. A grain offering that was baked in an oven is still acceptable, but it must also be made of fine flour. It may be presented in the form of thin cakes mixed with olive oil, or wafers spread with olive oil. But either way, it must not have any yeast in it. A grain offering that was cooked on a griddle is also acceptable, but it must still be made of fine flour mixed with olive oil. It must be broken into pieces, then olive oil must be poured on it, but it still must not contain any yeast. A grain offering that was prepared in a pan is also acceptable, but it must still be made of fine flour and olive oil. Whatever manner the grain offering for the Lord has been prepared, it must be brought to the priest who will present it at the altar, for it is a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. The rest of the offering will be given to Aaron and his sons as their food, and this portion will be considered a most holy part of the special gifts presented to the Lord. Yeast must not be used when preparing the grain offering, for both yeast and honey are not allowed to be burned as a special gift to the Lord. Yeast and honey can be added to an offering of the first crops of harvest, but they must never be offered on the altar as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Lastly, as a reminder of God's eternal covenant, the grain offering must be seasoned with salt, and this must never be forgotten. However, if the grain offering was from the first portion of the harvest, it must be fresh grain that was coarsely grounded and roasted on a fire, and olive oil and frankincense must also be added on it. The priest will also take a representative portion of the mixture and burn it as a special gift presented to the Lord. And that's Leviticus 2.